Hi, I'm Dr. Jan Jaffer, and this is Got Teeth, a patient-centric monthly podcast featuring local health experts. Hi, so today I'm with Mark with Credit Counseling Society, and we're going to talk a little bit about financial wellness and how to help ourselves during the year, and especially with spending coming up here at Christmas time, and other times that we can throughout the year. So Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Dr. Jan. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So let's just start. There's so much going on, especially just the cost of living right now. It's changed for everybody rapidly, and so we want to just talk about some basic things that we can start with. Maybe we can get more complicated later, but some basic stuff that we can start with to keep ourselves financially healthy.
It's a tough time for a lot of people, and I'm hearing it from everyone. They're going to the grocery store and they have to stop buying the frozen pizzas because they got more expensive. In our house, we've cut back on the amount of pop we drink because it's not good for us. But as much as we enjoy it, it's just something that we're not doing because we want to keep a couple of extra shekels in our pockets. So everyone's having to cut back rather severely. And when we combine the cost of living with the rising mortgage rates and interest rates, it's really stinging people. So what I want everyone to know to begin with is no one's alone in this. And I think when we talk about money and debt and issues around personal finance, everyone's like, I'm the only one that's ever faced this. I'm all by myself. No, you're with the majority. So it'll be okay. And we can, let's talk about some tips.
So that's great. Yeah. And I think that's a great point to bring up. It's like the interest rate's gone up for everybody, whether your mortgage got renewed, this year or last year, or it's coming up. It's going to be more expensive for, literally if you own a place, even if you're renting a place. Just living these days is getting more expensive. So what is it that we can start by doing? How can we plan this out a little bit better so that we don't overspend ourselves into, credit card debt or any sort of debt really? But credit cards probably being some of the worst.
Credit cards are high interest, and I think we want to avoid that as best we can. And to avoid going into more debt, maybe what we should do is go back to the very basics and investigate our numbers. And I'm going to say a bad word here, and I hope no one hangs up because of this, but we got to go do our budget. And no one wants to do it. I know half of all Canadians don't do budgets. Everyone who comes into our offices and speaks with a counselor does a budget, because when we see where their money's going, that's where we can find money to go and make life work better. And whether that's paying debt or saving to put your kid into higher education or working towards other goals, it all comes from the money we have coming in and figuring out where it's going.
So when you talk about budgets, because I do think it's important. I think, again, a lot of people it's hard to do it sometimes because it actually brings things into reality, and you're start to see how those extra little things that you keep going out and spending actually just add up really fast, the Starbucks coffee or the just those little things at $5, $6, $7 at a time, but daily add up to thousands of dollars. So what is it that what are you writing down when you start? Is it literally everything?
We're literally going to write down everything, and if you go to nomordebts.org, you can get a whole bunch of different budgets to just get started on. We're going to put in our income, wherever our money comes from, and we can count on it coming in this month. That's where we want to start, and then we're going to put down our needs, 5 basic needs. Got to have a place to live, got to feed the kids, you probably got to talk to people. Communication in the modern age, that's how we're all sort of at these days. I remind people that you got to get to and from work or school. If we don't go earn money, it doesn't get better. And then I think the final thing we have to remember is we have to maintain our health, because if you don't feel well physically or mentally too, I think to a large extent, life just doesn't get or feel better. So put those things in, and then life's good when we have what we need. We have a little bit of what we want, and where we fall off is maybe we give ourselves a little bit too much of what we want. And I'll tell you, I used to be an eight extra large Tim Hortons a day guy. 8 of them. As traveling salesman, every time I made a stop, I was having a Tim Hortons. It was my reward.
That is crazy.
That's $15 a day on coffee back in the day. It's probably way more now.
Yeah.
Well, I stopped drinking that coffee a long time ago. I put the money into my kids' RESPs, and their RESPs are covered after 20 years. They can go to school, and I hopefully don't have to throw extra money at it. But we got to investigate our habits, those things that go in our mouth, those things that make us smile. Mm-hmm. That's where we can make change.
So that's a good one. So let's write everything down. Let's start from what we're making. I think those 5 basic things. And I think I like that you bring up the health and wellness and mental wellness as well in that, because sometimes people wouldn't put that as kind of the 5 basic needs. They'd get through the other 4 and then they'd be like, okay, well, that's it. But yeah, you get sick, you can't go to work, or you're not feeling well. All of a sudden the top line disappears, and now we've got a much bigger problem to deal with. So that's actually really quite interesting.
Well, when your money doesn't work for you, I'll tell you, it does impact your mental well-being and it gets really hard to get out of bed because you don't want to go and counter the day. You don't think things are going to get better. And if you need to, take a little money from your budget and go and make sure that you're doing something that makes life good, that's okay to do.
Okay, so we get through our budget. We notice that, okay, we're probably overspending in a few areas. Is there some kind of magic numbers that you look at as to what we should be, after everything's done, hopefully saving and hopefully using for fun stuff? Is there any kind of metrics that make sense for people, or is it really different for everybody?
It's going to be different for everybody because everyone lives on such a different income. And if you have a big income, you're going to have a lot of money to go do fun stuff. If you live on a small income, more and more of your income is being dedicated towards the things you need. And it's the people on the smaller incomes that are definitely feeling impacted because more of their money's had to go to rent. Rent has gone skyrocketing. More of their money's had to go to food. There's just less for the fun things. But that doesn't mean life can't be fun because we can find good things to do that are free. I mean, I used to go, and I haven't gone in a long time. I'm not as athletic as I once was. But for giving a food bank donation, you used to be able to go and skate at the Olympic Oval here in Calgary. Well, that's wicked fun. That's where athletes get to skate, Olympians. For a can of corn, why not go do that? So we can still have our joy even if we have to cut back on our spending.
So look for different options. And I think online there's lots of different stuff. I mean, we're looking for, we got 2 little kids and we're like, oh, what are we going to do, for just Christmas events to get them out? And there actually are quite a number of them that don't cost you anything, right? That you could just go out and see things, go take them to lights and just, again, get out skating, whatever you can do to do that. So, okay, so we've kind of got there. So with that savings, are we looking at anything specific on that end? I mean, obviously, I guess it really depends if you have a family or not, but I mean, savings is probably still important regardless of having a family or not.
Well, we've come through COVID, and what we've discovered is the financial planners are telling us that we should have 3 to 6 months of whatever we spend in a month put into a cash account. So, I mean, let's say kind of normal people, we have $5,000 a month we spend on life. Well, that means we should all have $15,000 to $30,000 cash on hand at all times, right? And I know everyone's there. Or maybe not because there's a million other priorities occurring in life. What I encourage people to do is just find a little way to save money. So in my house, we might take the bottles back, and instead of going for a shawarma, I have a big 300-pound son. Sometimes what we'll do is take the bottle money and we'll put it in a jar in the house. And that's just savings in case he needs to do something. There's something at school that needs to be paid for. To that, I might add all the change that the kids leave in their clothes when I do the laundry. Well, that's a little bit of savings. I mean, best if we can dedicate savings from our bank account as money comes in, but when things are really tight, we still need to find a way to save because the number one thing that makes us feel well about our money is actively putting money aside just in case.
So you brought up a good point on the bank account too, because I think that, one of the things that we've talked, even with our teams and the rest about is like trying to get that money into, because I remember you talked about this with us a couple of years ago, is trying to have it disappear out of the primary bank account, like right off the bat. Can you talk a little bit more about that concept so we don't see it sometimes even?
Well, when we don't see it, we don't miss it. So in my house, and what I encourage a lot of our clients to do is right as you get paid, let's say Friday morning at 12:05 a.m. All right, you get paid. We don't see it because we're asleep. But we've automatically gone to our investment company, our bank, our savings company, and had them pull out whatever we're going to save for our various goals. So in my case, a little money goes to the holiday accounts, a little money goes to the birthday accounts, a little money goes to the vacation accounts, a little bit of money goes to the emergency accounts. It all just goes right away, right as I get paid. And then I just live on what's in my checking account. And sometimes my checking account doesn't take me quite as far as I want, so I give up something during the week. Maybe this week we're not going to go out for lunch. Well, it's okay. We had to put brakes on the car. We ran into an expense. That's all right. We'll go out next week. Not a big deal. We'll still have something good to eat. But in the meantime, I know these little acorns of savings have been shoved aside that I haven't seen, that I haven't looked at, that I haven't thought about. And we know what happens to acorns. They grow into oak trees. Eventually, we have a huge amount of money set aside.
So start from setting it up, ideally with your bank, that money comes in and it actually goes out into some savings accounts, 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever you're setting up. But literally the day that the money's coming into your accounts, you're not really seeing that money.
10 minutes after you get the deposit, have the money go. The banks will do all the arrangements, or the investment companies, wherever you save. It's okay, we all save in different places, but they can set it up automatically right as you get paid, and you won't miss that money.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest ones that if people can get around would make such a difference. Because again, if it doesn't hit that checking account, you don't think you can spend it. You don't see it, right? And it's already gone. And so then we can start to save. And then of course, obviously, if you have challenges, you have something in that special account to to go in and get. So
Absolutely. And if you ever have an emergency and you haven't saved for an emergency, well, good news. The vacation account becomes the emergency account. We can go fix the car. Life's okay. So we can definitely play with those accounts to best suit our priorities as they come along.
So any other, really things that we should be thinking about as we're, starting to shop and starting to buy things, and anything else that just really comes across the top of your mind that we need to, prioritize for people?
I have a couple of ideas, and I think the first thing is, and as we move into the holiday season, but there's always another expense coming up, is remember, most of us have everything we need. If we didn't have what we needed, we would go out and buy it. So as we're going into gift giving season, whether it's your kids or whether it's your husband or whoever else, ask yourself, is this something that's really going to benefit them and make their life better? We can do little things under the tree so that everyone feels appreciated. We don't need to spend lots of money. And I'll also add that sometimes when we think about the things we ourselves need, we commit to long-term payment plans that can cause us a lot of harm. So I happen to have driven here today in a 2014 Chrysler that's not blowing any heat. Well, it's way cheaper to get the heat fixed than to go and commit to spending $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 on a new car. So if we can stretch the use of the things we have, well, it's less wasteful, but we have more money in our pockets long term.
Yeah, and I think that one's actually really interesting too, because it's been interesting to see what the car companies have been doing over time. As it used to be these 3 and 4 year leases, now it's these 5, 6, 7, 8 year leases, and you just don't even realize what you're actually getting yourself into, because they're like, oh, you can get into a nicer car with lower payments, and you're like, how is that even possible? I can get a nicer car with lower payments. Well, now we're just paying interest over 8 years of time. And when you actually add that up, and they do need to show you somewhere, but when you look at that interest payment, it's often more than the car actually costs.
Absolutely it is. And I remind people, if you're buying a car for a period beyond the warranty period, so your warranty's over in 5 years, but you're paying for it for 8, and that car doesn't run anymore, you have a really expensive paperweight in your front yard.
Yeah. So looking at those things better. So I know that people do run into challenges. I mean, that's part of it, and part of what you do and the people that you work with do is help people out of those challenges. So tell us just a little bit about, if you get into a situation where you're stuck, what can you do?
First thing I'll say is that most people who have money challenges don't go willfully looking for them. It's not that they're irresponsible or bad people. It's that life has happened. Someone's lost a job, someone's got ill, someone's died, someone's fallen off a ladder. It could be anything, but usually it's nothing planned for. So if you have a money issue, you don't have to feel bad that you have the issue. Usually something's happened that's put you in a desperate spot. But whenever you're in a desperate spot and you don't feel like you can talk about it with anyone, remember, that's when you probably have to talk about it with someone. And when we're talking about money, you need to find a safe outlet, because when you're bleeding in the ocean, the sharks come swimming. And that's what happens with money. Bad people will come and offer help that's not there. A great place to start is talk to your bank, talk to your lenders, talk to your credit card companies. If they can help you, maybe you have your solution. If not, a nonprofit organization like Credit Counseling Society is a great place to go, because you get arm's length advice. It's free, it's confidential. No one gets paid a kickback or a bonus to send you any place. If we send you someplace, it's because that's what you need.
I think that's great. I think that's a good way to talk about it, because again, if we do all the right things, great, but even when we do all the right things, things don't always work out. And there's, stuff that happens to people that they need help. And so just asking for help can often, make you feel better, one, because it takes some of that burden off people, and so you're not stressing out with yourself. But then there's also opportunities to help get through it. And I know that you've talked about it, like you guys can put stops on certain things to get people out of situations where it's just the number is getting bigger instead of smaller, even with payments, right? So yeah, I think that's a big challenge.
Very much so. We gotta get people where they get a fresh start. I think that's very important, but we also got people to get to the point where they don't feel shame about talking about things, because you won't take the next step forward until you lose that bad sense around money, and you won't talk about it.
Well, great, Mark. I mean, thank you for your time. I mean, we've heard you speak now, I think 3 or 4 times, and it's always great, and it always, makes you think back to just, it's simple things that can get you to the end, really. So I appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me.